So thanks, Stefan. Great to be here with you. I'm sending here from Austria, from our campus of WU, Wirtschaftsuniversität Wien. Hope I'm a little bit better to understand. Yes, of course. So the topic today is about the Ever Given Suez Canal incident and the wake-up call for global supply chain redesign. Schramm, Hans-Joachim, my name. I'm senior lecturer at Wirtschaftsuniversität Wien, University of Economics and Business at Austria, at Vienna, and also external lecturer at Copenhagen Business School, where actually my maritime heart beats. Yeah. So introducing a little bit the vessel. So this is the Ever Given. It's one of 76 ultra large container vessels. Has about 400 meters. It's about 59 meters wide, draft of 60 meters, and has a deadweight ton mass of 169,338 deadweight tons. Given that this is so enormous figure, making a comparison, it's about 9.9 deadweight per TEU. That means you can load those 20,150 TEUs with less than 10 tons per TEU on this vessel. Hence, actually, the capacity when it's running with also full containers, it's about 40,792 TEUs. Have about 800 reefer plugs, 1,600 TEU reefers capacity. Was built in 2018 at Japan, Imabari Maguame shipyard. It's Panama flagged. It's owned by a Japanese company, a non-operating vessel owner, Shoei Kisen Kaisha. The technical manager is a German company, but situated office at Hong Kong and Singapore. Chartered and operated by Evergreen. That's the reason why it's called Ever Given. Insurer is the P&I Club UK in the UK, situated at London, and was deployed on Far Eastern Northern Europe trade lane. So what happened actually? Here, some short words about this. So it grounded in the 23rd of March, a Tuesday, refloated 6 days after, and was in need of about 15 tugboats, 2 dredgers, and about 600 personnel engaged. That was actually the total capacity the Suez Channel Authority had at hand. It caused a long closure, the longest closure since reopening of 1975 after the Egypt-Israel war. And we had, maybe you have seen it also in the media, a huge backlog of vessels, which actually resemble about 1.5% of total fleet, including about 88 container ships, some bulkers, oil tankers, LNGs, LPGs, car carriers, multi-purpose vessels, and others. A total value of about $2 billion in goods, about 200,000, sorry, typo, 200,000 animals, and about more than 8,000 seafarers were stuck there because of this incident. In the aftermath, and now actually it's over, all think it's over, we go to normality. It isn't the case, actually. The vessel is still under arrest in the Bitter Lake. The Suez Canal Authority holds vessel and cargo for ransom and initially asked for about $916 million, reduced it to 600. Maybe the last offer is about $550 million, inclusive about 200 million deposit. Note, the vessel itself is maybe about 110, 120 million worth. Yeah. Despite minimal damage, the vessel owners declared so-called general average, which is a very unique sort of insurance incident procedure, which is only a maritime, and many people do not know how to handle it. Probably this general average, which actually needs some surveyor, And actually, the surveyor itself is in the driving seat to decide what to do and how to do, if it will be again freed by the canal authority. We will have a real mess afterwards, so because these close to 200,000 TEUs have, on average, maybe 20 cargo owners per container, perhaps. And some of them booked also via Allianz partners of Evergreen. Yeah, because Evergreen is since a couple of years in alliance with CSCMP, OCL, Costco's China shipping. There are also damages to the Suez Channel because the Suez Canal is actually just dredged out of sand. Yeah, there is nothing, there is no concrete, nothing. There will be fines, of course, and other compensation claims by the Canal Authority. There will be also claims by all sorts of cargo owners whose cargo may be spoiled or delayed, especially when it comes, for example, on reverse perishable cargo, or also these 200,000 animals on board, which were also stuck. There were about 15, so far I know, about 15 vessel carriers were also stuck during that time. Also, all of us actually have also see some impact about late arrivals of cargo, of course, not only because of those vessels got stuck, because it's about congested ports. It's also about chronic container shortage, which we have since about half a year due to the pandemic, actually. Also extended booking delays, inflated rolling, and sliding of departures, because those vessels who got stuck about a week, actually they cannot catch up their journey or the time lost on the journey. So they will be late again for loading, for example, at Far East Asia. And this is not the only incident. So that was public. Yeah. I digged a little bit into the trade press, and I found, for example, on the left-hand side, that's the NIK Delphinus experienced an engine room fire on 14th of May. So this connects usually US West Coast with US East Coast Europe via Panama canals, and a rather unusual route, actually, trade lane, and also includes slot charters with CSCMP. Also, the owner declared general average. It will be somewhere hosted at Oakland until everything is resolved. Actually, no damage on the cargo. That's the same than in the case of Ever Given, but you can wait long before you get your container. On the right-hand side, serious incident of feeder vessel caught fire at the coast of Sri Lanka, probably due to a leak of nitric acid. The vessel tried to offload this cargo several times, starting at Dubai, at India, I think Mumbai, and then, yeah, the fire broke out at Sri Lanka, close to the port of Colombo. Yeah. Also, general average, maybe in this case, you cannot recover anything. Yeah. And even Ever Given is not alone. So a couple of days ago, the 13,092 TEU Maersk Emerald ran aground at kilometer 98 of the Suez Channel. That's actually the northern part where we have a detour. And actually they ran aground after engine room fault, which is quite common in these times, actually. However, it was refloated only a few hours later and joined the Ever Given at the Bitter Lake. Yeah. And the Ever Given is not alone. If you look back in the history, for example, the Yellow Fleet, so there were about 15 vessels were trapped in the Suez Channel after the 6-day war between Israel and Egypt. 14 of them were anchoring in the Bitter Lake for this about 6 to 8 years. Yeah. So it's actually not only one incident, I would say, that's a series of incidents. Yeah, there are also other incidents, like, for example, the one Apus and other big vessels who lost cargo to a considerable amount in early this year, for example. There are some other vessels also in debris. So we have a problem, actually. Yeah, and this is actually the topic of my talk today here. It's about, it's a wake-up call, and maybe we have to rethink global supply chains. Yeah. Well, given increasing on demand, fast delivery, and raising sustainability concerns, can we even accept goods being produced overseas? You see here down left down below, that's one small comic strip I actually used for years already. Yeah, you see here the female customer asked about this product was manufactured in 27 different countries and compares a wide variety of political and environmental philosophies. You decide. Yeah. We have to make decisions every day. If we go shopping, we have to make decisions about whether we want to buy this or that, because stuff I always talk about, or talk, for example, my students and also colleagues, well, things drop out of the container for several reasons. Yeah. On the right-hand side, we have another dimension on this. Yeah. So the customer asked the sales clerk about what country was it made in the car. Oh, well, he asked him back which part of the car you are talking about. Yeah. So even the more complex products are made from parts from somewhere over the world. Yeah. And we had several incidents in the past also where we got these stock outs because of something happened somewhere in the world. Yeah. Maybe talking a little about, because it's a kickoff to a discussion, maybe I want to bring out some ideas I got actually what could be solutions. And one solution I have, and that's what maybe a very simple one, is just to say, okay, raise safety stock levels. Yeah. So, you know, safety stock levels are here. So they just keep you afloat. When you're ordering something, there's a certain lead time, and when the lead time gets longer, maybe you have to have a higher safety stock level, you have to order earlier and such alike. So it's a very, very mechanic way of thinking about, if we think about inventory levels and reorder points. Yeah. However, that does not work. Yeah. You see it on the right-hand side. Yeah, I got this picture from a friend of mine from Germany. You can see here, that's Lidl. And Lidl is really sorry about that because of the Suez incident, they cannot deliver, yeah, especially their advertisement actions. So all this non-food stuff you get every week, yeah, such a new world. And yeah, it does not work. Yeah. Other ideas might be, and that's actually also here from academia, comes from academia, that's about the lean and agile or legal supply chain strategies. Yeah. So what we do, what we have a lot, these lean, plan and execute, long lead time strategies. Yeah. And maybe we start a little bit, we can do something on this if the demand gets unpredictable. So we can move actually to legal. Yeah. What is legal? Legal is actually some combination of lean and agile, yeah, which deals with some sort of postponement. That means that I actually have some generic products and then I finalize them at some final warehouse theater. Yeah. It works, it does not work, I don't know. This is, of course, really a big rebuild of your supply chain if you want to undergo this. Yeah. Other ideas, of course, came up in the discussion. It's about or backshoring or backsourcing or shoring. So we just move back stuff to the home country, to our headquarter country. Maybe here, of course, there's also a lot to tell, but I just want to bring up here the connectedness, for example, of Sweden. So how much is Sweden connected with the world, and with whom actually Sweden trades? Yeah? And a very good statistic in this respect is actually the DHL Global Connectedness Index. You see it on the right-hand side, the overall ranking and changes of it. And there is Sweden in rank 12 of 100 something countries in the world. Yeah. So maybe there are other countries a little bit more exposed, but look on you if you look on these top countries like Netherlands, Singapore, and Belgium, or United Arab Emirates, these are hubs of, I would say, transition. Yeah, that's transshipment hubs. That's the big port areas where just the cargo flows through. Yeah, if we go a little bit down, then is Sweden really exposed. Yeah. However, what we have is, if we look a little bit about the countries of international flows, so the shares of Sweden international flows here on the left-hand side, we see here also mixed picture. So for example, we have number one is United States, which is, by the way, rather unusual when it comes on such global connectedness index from one country point of view. Yeah. If you feel that this map here is a little bit odd, that's just all the countries are weighted by the importance in trade. Yeah? And there's a common pattern actually with it. You see maybe United States number one, you see China number 9, you see the United Kingdom and the Brexit on number 4, but all the other countries are just surrounding of Sweden. So there is, I would say, there is some sort of a possibility, of course, to get closer, and maybe some sort of a relief is that we are not so much dependent on, for example, Sweden, not so much dependent on these very distant, far away sourcing and shoring. Yeah. So there are other countries in the world which are quite much more dependent on this, like, for example, the US. Yeah. Another idea which I came up already a long time, and a lot of practitioners think, okay, I'm going crazy. It's about real options. Yeah. There is a very old article, actually, it's over 25 years old already, by Hofskammer and Cohen. It shows very nicely, actually, what we can do if we have options of, for example, say, okay, well, maybe we do not produce here at Europe, but maybe in North America or Asia. Yeah? Of course, it depends a little bit on the industry, and you are not always in driving seat to do this. But they found out with their model, for example, they found out that it is favorable. Yeah. So let me dig in a little bit and declare it. So what we have is here, you see here supply, production, and the market. So we have an inbound and production operations and the outbound logistics. And then you have several options in the world. So for example, purely national US or global sourcing here. Here we have such a very centralized production, for example. And this can be, of course, switched from the US to Europe to Asia. Yeah. And last but not least, okay, we do everything. Yeah. And they made a model, they just calculated a model and said, okay, on one side, maybe we make some precautions by making financial hedging. So it was actually, the idea was here behind to say, okay, what gives us the best, highest expected after sales profit? Now, and you see up in the upper graph, you see that actually financial hedging does not help. Yeah. Because usually, and you see if you compare it with the down below, actually the filled squares, this is the initial situation, and the white filled squares are the the situation after financial hedging. So you see only a few instances there is a little bit a slight improvement here, here, and here, but not. But if we actually allow us to move freely, so just switching from this to that, to this, to that, production side, and also maybe say, okay, we do not serve this or that market, for example, or source not here and there, but we have some sort of options, so real options of doing this. Then, of course, it traces here on this very flat line, so it's fine. Yeah. Another way, of course, if everybody thinks, okay, that's a little bit laborious and maybe we should not change so much, yeah, in our configuration, of course, we can also think about other modes of transport, yeah. And luckily, Asia and Europe, for example, is bound or is just connected also by land modes of transport, yeah. I digged in this in the past a lot, and also I'm really on constant basis. I'm actually involved in this Belt and Road stuff. So there's the Belt and Road initiative by the Chinese government since a couple of years, and it's seems to be some sort of a success stories. Given, for example, here container block trains and transported TUs. It's before the pandemic, it was actually about 3 to 4% of all total TUs transported between China and Europe were transported via the Eurasian land bridge or Belt and Road connections. Yeah, so we have several connections. You see here there's here a red one. This goes through Kazakhstan. Then we have here an orange one that goes through Mongolia. There's another one through Manchuria. There is a slight new link here to Russia. And there's one which is actually hidden, which comes here on the southbound to Europe. Yeah. And even also what we can do, and that's quite maybe striking for some people who didn't notice it or didn't got actually the message from International Road Transport Union, road haulage is also possible. So there is an evidence, there is also a video given. It takes about 12 days to get the truck from actually the Chinese border to towards Europe. Yeah. The company, it's only 1 or 2 companies who actually offer this solution. Yeah. Is there a link to rail from Vietnam? Yeah, of course, yes. Vietnam is bound to China and China is bound to Kazakhstan, Russia. Yeah, there is a possibility. So far, I know it's normal gauge. So yeah, you have to change the gauge then actually so at the border of Kazakhstan or Russia, but I think they have the normal gauge still. Yeah, they are also together in an organization called OGD. Yeah, and so therefore it should work. Yeah, but there is actually no economic activity in this respect. What I know is there's a train from Beijing down to Vietnam. Yeah, so passenger train that's regularly going. Yeah, so but of course it's nice to know these modes of transport. Maybe let's have a look a little bit on the bare facts and figures. Yeah, so what is about cost and time comparisons? And we made in the past some inquiry into this. So this is actually our outcome. There are costs and transit times here depicted from 2006, I would say maybe the good old days before the economic crisis, and 2017 before the pandemic. And then we can see a lot of shifts here with indicated by orange. So from the star to the non-star, for example, air, within these 10 years, approximately 10 years, actually, the price raised a lot. It takes about 5 days, usually having an air cargo shipment. We have sea transport, the service got crappy, I would say crappiest. Yeah. And there is also a mix between sea and air, which is actually on a more or less on a line with air and sea nowadays. Yeah. So you could make it, you could access it. There are specialists doing this. This is when we think on the straight line between Far East and Europe, and this is especially Dubai and Sharjah passing by. So the vessel transported until the Dubai Sharjah, better say Dubai Jebel Ali, and then it's reloaded to Sharjah or Dubai port, Dubai airport. And then flown actually in all directions. So it might be Central Asia, it might be Europe, the heart of Europe, and even Africa. As this hub of Emirates is very functioning. Yeah, However, what we see here, the new kids on the block, yeah, so we have rail transport, and this is actually a success story we remarked, and you can read it about this, a lot of stuff. So actually rail transport didn't got so expensive, but just speeded up considerable, yeah. I have also here put in road transport as the new kid on the block. Actually, I lack a little bit of data, so there are no official prices, but I can expect that road transport, a truckload, a full truckload of such a 40-ton container with 10 tons will be about $10,000 yeah? And maybe a little bit more. The price actually, it's, I would say, a priceless service. I know they can actually ask every price. Yeah? Now, this was 2017. What is the situation at the moment? Well, if we look, for example, on sea transport here, the freight rates raised a lot. We had a roller coaster last year, and even without this Suez Canal incident, they are high. So the last figures I got is about $10,000 per few, so 40-foot container. And if we believe, for example, figures by Hapag-Lloyd, yeah, the German carrier, we have really a quite open communication policy. I would say we are about 10,000 here, and then 20 plus 20% here. So that's actually, we are here. Yeah? So that's totally out of range. You get a crappy service, it's totally out of range. Yeah? When it comes on air transport, well, maybe that's also plus 100% of time and plus about 100% of price. So we are somewhere, I don't know, even there, and move to there. Yeah. So yeah, that's the situation at the moment. Yeah. With road and rail, I do not have to do anything because prices are stable and road is stable. Yeah. So do we have this? Do we have these options? Yes and no. Rail transport actually is the rail transport, the Belt and Road Initiative and the NELP is overly, there is actually no capacity on these routes any longer at the moment. And they can also not actually expand too much. Yeah? And even also one thing we should not forget, yeah? There is, here is Minsk. And we know there is a last incident. Last week there was an incident, a tiny incident where airplane was forced to land at Minsk, and then two dissidents, or one dissident and one and his girlfriend had to leave the aircraft, which is, well, unmatched actually in our times. And this means maybe for some time that we do not have also these option left. Yeah. So we are in a mess, actually, yeah, in a totally mess. Yeah. So they are, yeah. And that was actually first, I want to go here, get into the discussion with you, actually, because I showed enough slides, I think. Yeah. So thank you for attention, and the floor is open for questions, additional questions. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Hans-Joachim.
Thank you.
All right. So I see there was a question in the chat here about the link to the rail from Vietnam, but it seems that that question was answered. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay. So there is a potential link, but it's not used commercially. Yeah. So as I know, I think passenger trains are running, yeah, on a constant basis from China, but nothing more. Yeah, is the case.
All right. So please feel free to shoot questions in the app. And here's one from Juliet Day. But does China allow other Asian countries to use the cargo train to Europe, to the EU? So is there a possible answer to that one?
What about the Northern Sea? I see, there's one. Yeah. So what about the Northern Sea link north of Russia? Yes, it's also one opportunity, but not executed yet. Especially because we have operational problems, I would say. Some sort of operational problems. The operational problems are such alike that for example, if the vessel has an incident, here, no one can help you. Yeah. The second issue is about, it's from the distance, it's shorter, but there is not really, I would say, a business case. Yeah. So I know some colleagues in Finland, in Sweden, Norway, they calculated already several cases. But it's really questionable whether it will really pay off. Yeah. One recent calculation goes along, for example, that we use actually Murmansk as the last ice-free port to reload, for example, container cargo from Europe. And on the other side, it's at Kamchatka, a port at Kamchatka, which is then the other point. And there should be some sort of pendulum service with ice class vessels being done. First, these ice class vessels are not existing. These what we need for this transport in this size to make it maybe economical. And the second one is, of course, Murmansk. Neither Murmansk nor this Kamchatka port are, I would say, load centers. Yeah, so you have to really transport it a long distance into, I would say, somewhere nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, in order to make a reload. Yeah, so now it will not come. And also the big shipping lines really resigned and said no. So I know from CSCMP, I know it from Maersk, I know it from Hapag-Lloyd even personally. So all of them are very skeptical about and just have a wait and see attitude on this. Yeah. There is, what about sustainability aspects? Yeah, sustainability aspects, how to calculate, handle them. Oh, that's a big question. Actually, we are very deep into this. And it's especially when it comes on container shipping, there is, at the moment, believe it or not, there is not real a solution in sight. Yeah. So the problem is about when we calculate this, we can say, of course, rail and truck, for example, rail is more environmental sustainable than blah, blah, blah. When it comes to the vessels, for example, on the container vessels, the problem is about which figure is the right one. Yeah. So if you have a 20,000 TEU size class, these ultra large container vessels, it really depends on every container you load on that actually changes your calculation. The more containers you are on, the divisor is higher, so you get a better sustainability calculation. The problem is really about that we do not exactly know how many containers are on a vessel in every time. Yeah, it's actually only the operator knows, and that's actually some sort of a business secret. Held as a business secret. So we can calculate a little bit of averages, and that does not hold. Especially in our times, for example, maybe you have heard that we have also, apart from 20,000 TEU vessels on this trade lane between Far East and Europe, we have also some tiny 2,000 TEU vessels, so 1/10 of the size, also driving side by side the big vessels, because there is a lack of capacity and some inventive freight forwarders and inventive smaller shipping lines actually take the chance and also start their services there. Yeah? So there is a huge difference of a small vessel of 2,000, more a feeder vessel, versus a 20,000 TEU vessel. Yeah? I would say the market actually has to decide. Yeah? What else? So I'm a little bit short-sighted and have my laptop on the side, so I have a little bit to look on the side. Stefan, you have one. How much you were affected by
this
canal incident?
I hope you can hear me better now. I think the number there is more or less accurate as far as I understand. I heard the number 120, but I mean, we are suffering substantially from shortage of capacity from Far East. So, of course, 100, 120 containers is a big problem. So, yes, we are dealing with safety stock. As to your example there, it's difficult to hedge this magnitude of incidents, but of course it has impacted us, and our service levels have been hit by this. But again, this is not the only problem that we have experienced over the last year, and even more than that. So I don't know quite how to measure that, but service definitely have been impacted negatively.
Mm-hmm. There's another question.
Maybe I can shoot a question. It seems like the option, at least, of putting some of the goods on rail from China to Europe is looking at the lead time, at least, seems really appealing, and also from a cost perspective seems competitive. But you can look at it from a risk perspective, and also to your Minsk example, how would you rate the risk of getting disrupted by putting the goods on rail as opposed to sea?
Actually, this Belarus-Minsk airplane incident, yes, raises a lot of questions, because at the moment, I do not say it's blocked, but there will be a viable possibility that it will get blocked. Yeah, there are of course standing contracts between not only cargo owners and freight forwarders and operators on that line, but also, for example, most of those containers are actually transported in a joint operation that's called UTLC, and that's a joint operation of the Kazakh, the Russian, and the Belarus railways. Yeah? And even also, despite there is a dispute between Ukraine and Russia, we can see that, for example, container block trains are also going via Cernada-Tisu job, or via the job and the Hungarian border, for example. And also, for example, deep in the eastern of Slovak Republic, at Cernada-Tisu, there is a container terminal owned by Russian railways. Yeah? However, what we have is, the real problem what we have is, if things escalate and the connections, the land connections are also broken, yeah, then we lose about maybe 70 to 80% of the total, this Eurasian rail capacity. Because most of these transports go via Brest-Litovsk, so Malazhayetse, that's actually the main route. Yeah? And even in addition to this, there are side routes, of course, sideways side routes via Kaliningrad, Zaplast, so Kaliningrad area, or Lithuania and Latvia. But there are also those connections go via over Belarus territory. Yeah. So we lose a lot of routes, yeah, on this land transport side, and we are actually left with maybe Finland, yeah, Estonia, Finland, and down below Ukraine, yeah. And who knows whether Ukraine is so pleased to do this, yeah.
We have a question here about rounding South Africa, or Africa actually.
Yeah.
Is that a viable option? Yeah.
It's an option. It's an option. Actually, a couple of vessels did it, but it adds a minimum of 8 days. And then it depends a little bit on the bunker, so fuel price, whether it pays off versus actually, for example, paying the, I have to admit, hefty fee you have to pay passing the Suez Channel. Yeah. Well, time over time, even container vessels do the journey via South Africa, yeah, the route. Mostly they have done when they had a slow speed phase. So said, okay, there is less deployment, there is less of a need actually for capacity. So when actually economy slowed down, some of those carriers actually made this route. It was especially when the fuel costs were low and they had actually just to eat up, consume, just to waste time, yeah, on the, would say, whole back. Yeah, so it was actually backhaul from Europe to Asia. They used it. Yeah, it's actually on permanent. It's not an option. Yeah, so also think about it's especially when we think about those container vessels, for example, were loaded to pass by the Suez Channel. The problem is about that when they detour, for example, then they have still about maybe 3,000 or 4,000 containers on board for the Mediterranean. So they have to drop it off, and those containers are heavy laden. Yeah, 2 weeks is nothing then. Yeah. So yeah, it's possible, yeah, it's doable, yes, but almost none of these vessels who were stuck, especially on the southbound, stuck at the Suez Channel did it. Yeah, even some really turned, yeah, made a U-turn after it was open again. Yeah.
Right. So we have yet another question. It's perhaps a bit long, but I think you can see it as well, Hans-Joachim. It's about mining and Class 1 goods.
Yeah.
So I mean, what to think about? Of course, that there is a bottom line cost, of course, but also risk. Is there any general advice that we can give? It seems like this is
yeah, that's these mining and within mining and interlink. That, yeah, well, the problem is about that you yeah, it's always, I would say it's always about the mix of, do we have another source? Do we can actually switch to something else? Yeah, so do we have a second chance, a second option? And the other one is actually prepared for the worst. Yeah. So we, for example, what we see is when we are looking on, for example, raw oil, yeah, refining capacities, for example, companies who have a refinery, they have a lot of storage actually in Europe. Yeah? So I know it, for example, from the Austrian one, OMV here, just around the corner. They have actually a storage capacity, I think, about half a year or even a year. Yeah, so we could actually have fuel for a year without any problem. Yeah, and this is actually also needed for production purposes, because from such a barrel of raw oil, you get only several fractions or certain fractions out. Yeah, so if you, for example, have a more demand on diesel, yeah, you have to take a special specification of raw oil in order to get the right fractions out. Otherwise, you have a lot of work to re-change or redesign actually the fuel you get. Yeah, so crack it down, for example, or enrich it afterwards. Yeah. So yeah, so somehow safety stock levels is a key. Yeah, is a key. So that's not the reason why I put it first. Yeah. We feel everything, or over the last, I think, last 2-3 decades, everything speeded up. Everything speeded up, and everybody wanted to have it, everything maybe the next day and so on. So maybe we have a little bit to slow down. Yeah, and slowing down means, of course, also stock levels. Yeah, something which is not on vogue maybe since the last 2 or 3 decades. Yeah. even for IKEA. Yeah.
Now, one question that I'm sitting with Hans-Joachim is that, okay, this is problem. We know that this is not the only thing that happened. You have provided a number of examples. I don't know if the number of incidents and disruptions will increase over time, but it's difficult to see that there should be less of that at least. So what would we need to think about as companies running global supply chains? Is there something that we should kind of improve on when it comes to capabilities that we may have or not have today that would put us in a better position to, I call it, mitigate those kind of things?
Well, yeah, you are actually, as a company, you are in a driving seat. And of course, if you go closer, yeah, so if you actually want to get closer from the sourcing over the production to the distribution. So for example, reshoring to Europe, yeah, this is done to a high extent. However, it's somehow limited also, yeah. It's limited if we depend on certain raw resources, it's totally limited. When it comes on production capacity, I think there is no excuse somehow, is no real excuse to produce it somewhere in China or somewhere else. Yeah, even China is not an excuse any longer, because China, for example, I searched about, for example, trucking costs within China, and I got real empirical data. So it was actually collected, sampled by the Logistics Association of China. And I was really shocked about the prices. They have almost the same prices than us. Yeah. So if we have a product that can bear the cost being produced somewhere at Europe or close to Europe, why not? Yeah. Then it got also sustainable, more sustainable. Yeah? The product. Yeah.
You're right. And then you have the time aspect, and you had that in one of your slides, Hans-Joachim. Can we even afford to source products so far away that we get in a situation with pretty long lead times, unless we choose to use air transport, which is not the case. So, I mean, everything with the omni-channel, we want next day deliveries. I mean, how do we even make that without running enormous safety stock, which we do not want, because product life cycles is pretty short too, right? So it feels like a tough equation.
Yeah, so it's of course, yeah. So what we have is, of course, if we reuse products, yeah, we have it already, the resources there. And I'm also involved in some, well, at the moment, business project of students, for example, at Copenhagen. And there's also the question about this. For example, a big IT company situated in Denmark and Sweden, probably the largest one. I should not tell a name actually, because it's so confidential. They, for example, approached us how to make things better, and yeah, to some extent, they said, "Oh, let's have, for example, a recycling quota of 100%." Yeah, think about IT company recycling quota of 100%. So every stuff they sell out, yeah, should be recovered. Yeah. Well, I said to the students and then directly to company, well, it's not realistic. So there will be always a loss. Yeah, we will have always new materials bringing in. Yeah, and think, for example, about, I don't know, a mouse or a keyboard. Yeah, will it be ever reclaimed or not? Yeah, so it will actually go out to the customer but never come back. Yeah, despite they have some, I know at Sweden, for example, there are some incentives in place about this. Yeah, it will not happen. Yeah, so we will have not a full circular economy. We'll never have. Yeah, so that it leads to totally autarky of the country, autarky of the economy. It will never be there. Yeah, but of course the reuse and remanufacturing is a solution. So for example, my private laptop, without making advertisements, is for example a laptop which is about 6 years old, but it runs like a charm because it was made at Japan with a Japanese keyboard, yeah, and I can play football with it. Yeah. The same is also my mobile phone, for example, and this is the normal Samsung something. I can just drop it down on the floor and pick it up, and everything is fine. Yeah. So a problem, of course, is when products are longer being used, yeah, can be longer used and reused, then of course we get a little bit out of these problems, yeah, of these long supply chains and such alike, yeah. Also, without making advertisement, I think your company also has, Stefan, has some approach to this, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry to say that we are starting to run out of time here, so I think it's time to round off. I don't want to shy away from the question, but yes, there are of course circular things, and that was actually the more rhetoric question from Lena in the chat here. Our circular economy being a potential source of not having to ship so much good across the globe for the greater good of our environment. And I think that is definitely here to stay. And I just want to thank you all, first of all, Hans-Joachim, for triggering some thoughts for us. I think that you provided some answers, some insights, but also triggered a lot of questions. And I also want to apologize for the slow start of the seminar and the bad sound. But I hope that you at least have got some ideas and some reflections upon this. I can see a number of questions that of course still are not answered, and definitely not for each and every supply chain company how to deal in specific situations. But I think it is an interesting situation that is unfolding now in the aftermath of both, of course, the Suez Canal and the COVID situation. So with that said, I want to thank all the participants. We also had a question in the chat about how this recorded session will be distributed. I do think that the file might be too big to be sent out by mail. So my guess here and now will be that we will provide a link from that can be used to download the recording, and we will reach out to all the participants with that information as soon as we can after the seminar. So that makes it 3:10, and that's our end of the webinar. So thank you all for attending. Thank you, Hans-Joachim, for sharing your insights. And we all hope to see you again in some seminar. Thank you all, and have a great week.